Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Inspired Writer Collective. Today, we're going to be talking about the embodied writer experience. And this is probably a new phrase you've heard us say since the launch of this fall season. That's because during our downtime in the summer, Stephanie and I put our minds together to figure out what we really think is valuable to put out in our newsletter space, how we want to show up in your inbox. And we experienced the value of hosting a virtual writers retreat back in July. And we just thought, you know what? Being able to give our listeners a retreat like experience in their inbox each week is where we really want to be. And we both write from a place of feeling the emotions in our bodies and trying to translate them onto the page. That makes genres like memoir very engaging. It brings something, a deeper dynamic to fiction writing. And so today we want to go a little bit deeper to explain what we mean when we talk about embodied writing and invite you to join us and invite you to join this email list so that you can experience this with us. So I'm going to kick it over to Stephanie. How are you doing, Stephanie?
Good, good. How are you, Elizabeth?
Good. Got a new bookshelf here with some of my favorite reads, my memoir references, my journals on top. So, trying to add a little bit more dynamic to the background here.
I love it. I love that style of bookshelf that you have behind you there. That's so cool. And it definitely does add to everything. I have a not so interesting background behind me today, but that's okay. It makes it easier, fewer interruptions from others around in the house today. So that is helpful. But yeah, I'm so excited that we're talking about the embodied writing experience today because as we were thinking about what we can offer you listeners and our community that really will bring so much added value to your journey as a writer, we didn't just want to have something, oh, yeah, this is our newsletter and we just update you on stuff. This is truly an experience in your inbox that gives you something that you can take even if it's not right in that moment, you can save it for later. But we really wanted to take, as Elizabeth said, what we experienced during our virtual and in person retreat that we had in July and bring it to the inbox. Because we know there are probably many of you who are like, oh, we really wanted to join. But of course, it was 4th of July weekend. But schedule wise, that was what worked for us. So we just went with it. And we did have some wonderful participants who shared that they might not have otherwise committed to their writing. So that was really exciting for us to hear. And we thought, well, what can we bring to everyone? And this is what came up. And it's really the idea is that it's an opportunity for you to explore prompts or activities that we suggest that really can spark your creativity, encourage you to get into a writing practice that helps you feel more grounded in yourself and to write the stories that are really deeply personal. Because we know that it can be really hard to go to those places sometimes that are deep within us. But this is an opportunity for you to do it in your own space, on your own time. And it's really about when you really feel at the core, you're really able to bring more to your story, whether it's memoir, whether it's a novel, but when you can really find the space for yourself, it just is so powerful.
And it's also that invitation to like get out of your head, right? We as writers at times really struggle to get past all of that critique and thinking brain and just get into our bodies to tap into the memories and the feelings around those memories, the visceral shifts that we felt at the time, whether it was like tingling in your fingers or your pounding heartbeat or a chill up your back, right? And so this is to help us like get out of our heads a little bit so that we can write those first drafts that capture all of that beautiful essence. Not thinking about those future drafts, not thinking about the edits, not thinking about, what your reader is going to take away from this at that moment, but really just getting those words onto the page in their essence, in their all of their raw, vulnerable beauty, so that you have a beautiful palette and template to work from later on in the editing process.
Well, and also as writers, I mean, we're always looking for the opportunities of, oh, I'd love to be part of a retreat. I'd love to be part of,
Mhm.
a community. And this is one way to be part of our community and learn about what we're bringing to you and to experience that retreat like material that you might not find just by a simple Google search, or you get lost going down the rabbit hole that way. And this way, I mean, you don't even have to think about it. It comes to your inbox on Thursdays, and in our emails on Mondays and Tuesdays, which also connect very closely with the embodied writer experience. And you will have choices, and it's a great way to allow yourself to have the time to write. And one of the series that I've been doing for our Thursday emails has been about the chakras. And the chakras weren't something that I've always focused on through my whole life. I mean, I've heard about it, but it wasn't really until I started a yoga practice in 2019 that this idea of the chakras, which are, if you're not familiar with them, are energy centers in your body that trace up your spine, and you can visualize them as spinning wheels of energy. And it's each of them is related to a particular aspect of ourselves. And so I started thinking, this is definitely one way that you can really embody every aspect of yourself is through grounding in the chakras, because it's a very tangible idea to think about, like, okay, there's this energy center, and it starts at the root, which when you're sitting on the ground, the base of your spine, you're rooted down, and that's where you start. And each one is associated with a color. The root is red. And so as you sit in that energy, you can visualize the color in that space. And it brings you to a point of allowing for groundedness at that space for you as a writer. And so in that email, I gave some prompts, and a few of them were, you think, who am I to tell this story? And, what will people think? And you just allow yourself to sit with those questions, and you can journal them, you can think them, whatever, works for you. But as the weeks went on, I, moved up the sort of, I guess you could say, the different energy spaces, and offered different ideas. And each each email is a little bit different. Some have prompts, some have reflection points. Some are some activities to like fill your day, as like, here's an idea for a 1 day, retreat to dive into a particular chakra. And so it's been well received by our community, this idea of really thinking about getting into the body. And the chakras are one way where it allows you to do that.
I've loved them. You've done such a great job in crafting these experiences. And the really cool thing is, well, I've been receiving them weekly as, someone who gets these emails, and I don't always know what you're going to put out, but it's cool to see the synergy between my Tuesday memoir emails and your Thursday emails, especially as you got to the heart and we were talking about core message, and that's a big aspect of our memoir master plan program. But even when you're talking about the root, the concept of like, why do I want to tell this story? Why am I the person who can provide this perspective? That's where we all start as memoir writers, is feeling that conviction and that groundedness in our own story, in our own lived experience, and recognizing the value in that and cultivating that desire to share it. Because there's so many aspects of it that you hear those little voices in your head, those seeds of doubt of like, oh, this would make you look very egotistical to think that you have some value to impart here, or no one, your experience isn't different enough from anyone else's, but it is. And it's uniquely yours, your set of perspectives. And so the way that you help us not just go into our bodies, but take some of the things that I'm sharing on Tuesdays related to memoir
Hmm.
writing specifically and help us feel that throughout our bodies. It's such a great series, and we're not even all the way through. You've still got a couple of more chakra centers to talk through. And once that's all completed, we'll have that as a full series DIY download that you can do. And you can either mark off a week or and do one chakra per day. You could mark off like a weekend and do like the full series. Whatever it is, that's the kind of thing we are trying to build out for you guys, so that you don't have to wait, for our quarterly offering of our free virtual writers retreats, which the next one's coming up in October. You don't have to wait for those. You can create that at any point that you need it. And in this busy world with all of these different inputs, it's so nice to be able to quiet ourselves down, to remember that we have the choice of consuming or creating. And this is an avenue to help you switch
Hmm.
those channels from a need to consume. Maybe that's out of fear, that's out of uncertainty in these shifting, changing times. Maybe it's just uncertainty and just the value of your own story or how to get started. But what you've built out, Stephanie, with these Thursday emails and particularly this chakra series right now is an avenue for all of us to go back to that essence and to be able to sit quietly and have some practices, have some things to think about, have some even activities as far as like your body positioning or breathing exercises to really feel that energy and cultivate a space for creativity to come through.
Well, and I've been having so much fun writing the series because I feel like it's even brought for me this new recharge in my energy around my own writing. And I know I shared with you that recently I had this inspiration for a new idea for a book, and it connects to one that I'm already working on. And I was able to just sit down and write a whole outline, which I feel like has been driven by this work around the chakras and allowing myself to really sit down, because even as I'm writing these, I'm really sort of going through them in a very brief way. I'm reading it, I'm thinking about it, and I mean that's the embodiment part, is really just soaking it in and thinking about it. Even for my own writing, in fiction, I've talked about this. And the interesting thing, as you mentioned about the heart chakra and coming back to the core, and even, your solar plexus and the sacral chakra, I mean, all of those sort of centers of our body where, that idea of going with your gut and that core message piece. What was so interesting for me, especially with the start of the memoir master plan cohort, is that while I'm not writing memoir, I was able to really land on what is the core message of my fiction writing. Like that, even though I'm, not in the, in the cohort other than as a supportive coach, all of those pieces are just there. They and it is that aspect of soaking it in and feeling it in my, in my body, and like, well, how does this idea feel? And it was just so cool to land on, oh, well, this is my core message. And I really feel like there's this influence of all of these pieces along the way. Like, and that's the cool thing. I mean, with this series, and as you said, complementing it with what you share on Tuesday in your emails. And so, listener, there'll be a link to join with the embodied writing experience, but you also have choices with our list. And you can choose to also get, Monday, where you won't miss an update about the podcast and, behind the scenes information there, or Tuesday when Elizabeth shares incredible insights on memoir writing from all of her deep reading in memoir, her own memoir journey, what she's experiencing right now with the cohort that is in session. And so, these are all things that you don't want to miss and why you want to be on our list.
Absolutely. Stephanie, talking about the way that it like feeds off of each other, you just released the throat chakra one recently, and it was just so timely because it was a great reminder for me as the leader of this group to remember to use my own voice, but also find ways to cultivate space for each of these women to find their voices and to use their voices and make sure that everyone is heard and everyone feels supported. And all of that is throat chakra activation. That's so important for anyone that has a message that they want to share with the world, because at some point you're going to have to talk about it, right? It's not just enough to like feel it and to write it down. Like at some point there comes a part of sharing it and receiving feedback, receiving guidance, whatever that looks like at whatever stage you're at. But sharing your story is one of the 12 main reasons why people write memoir in the first place, is because they want to feel seen, they want to feel known. Like the
Mhm.
deep sense of peace it gives you to know that someone else can read your story and you will finally feel known and understood in some aspect of your life is huge and a big motivator behind why people write memoir. It's interesting because there are at least two women out of the three that are in the group right now that came to memoir writing because of their own healing journey. Like they started to write down their stories because they were seeking healing. It didn't start as a sharing. It started as like I feel like something is off. You can feel that in your body, you can feel it in your gut. And and then they started exploring their stories and they started to notice these patterns and these cycles. And that's the beauty, I think. The biggest takeaway from writing memoir is the personal development that you're encouraged to go through just as a person, whether you ever share that story or not. Being able to notice those patterns and notice those cycles and then decide, is this a cycle that feels healthy to me? Is this something that is just helpful to know about myself, that I go through these cycles? Or is it a pattern that I am ready to shift out of? Is it something that was handed down to me that I'm ready to, go a different way on? And what does that look like? Well, now I see what all the precursors are because I can see this pattern repeating in my life. And this time I'm going to do something different. And I'm just going to see what that ends up looking like. And so it's so encouraging, and this this is just what we hope for the writers in our community, whether that's
Mhm.
you listeners or whether that's the women that have opted into the master plan cohort or those that attend with us virtually with our writers retreats and other offerings, is that we just want to create a space where your story is valued, where you feel seen and known, and where if you are wanting to share your story more broadly, then you feel supported in that. And I think that's so beautiful, Stephanie, the way that you've taken that core message concept, because I've said for a long time that this isn't just for memoir. It is essential for memoir, but
Mhm.
it also adds so much depth to any narrative, even if you're taking from your lived experience and fictionalizing it and playing with it and trying a different ending than what you lived, or a different environment than where how you grew up, because you want to play with those aspects. That core message piece is what your reader's going to resonate with. because it's
Hmm.
that core message that is going to reach through the pages and tickle something in their own experience, right? It's going to stimulate something that they've, you know, maybe haven't fully explored, and you're going to be guiding them through your narrative, memoir or fiction, and showing them a way. Not necessarily the way, but a way. And sometimes just being presented with possibilities um, can really lead to some beautiful things. And that's what you're doing in your Thursday emails. There's no sense of, oh, you have to do all of these exercises or you need to go through this series of prompts. Pick and choose what works for you,
Hmm.
or identify which chakra you're feeling kind of stuck on and go and explore why that might be through these writing prompts.
Well, and what I love what you said at the beginning about the throat chakra and, using your voice, because one of the things that I love as part of your memoir master plan cohort is watching and being part of the energy of the women in the group and seeing how masterfully you bring forth their comfort level at voicing their lived experience. There are women in the group who have felt like their voice hasn't mattered, and it's so cool to see, even in just the very beginning of your cohort, that they're feeling that they can speak what their experience is, and they're feeling that comfort, and you're allowing the space for that, and it's so beautiful to see that. And that's also part of this whole embodied writing experience. Is, yes, you can get this in your inbox on Thursdays, or you can get more from us on Mondays and Tuesdays if that's your preference. But also, if you're a memoir writer, or you're feeling like, oh, nobody's going to want to listen to my story because it doesn't matter, that's not true at all. I mean, we want you to know that we're here to hold space for your experience and to allow you to explore how you can bring your story to others, because the human experience is very universal. When you start to talk about your experience, you begin to realize that other people share in your journey in some way. They might not have had the same experience, but there's this sharing and there's this connection that happens. And we found that so powerfully just in starting this podcast. And we had no idea when we started that all of a sudden we were going to be building these connections with incredible, people and women who are just bold and brave about sharing their stories. And that's what this writing experience is about. It's not just about cultivating the creativity, but allowing for that shared collective experience that brings you in community. And of course, community, as you know, listener, if you've been listening for a while, like, we are real. I mean, we are all about the power of community here. And so that is also what is so incredible about the Memoir Master Plan cohort. And if you miss this round, make sure to get, on our list, for so you don't miss out on when the doors open again for it. Because trust me, if you have a story you want to share, you don't want to miss the opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie, for saying that. Yeah, it's such an honor to be able to create that space, and it's why I intentionally keep the group women only and very, very, very small. So, yeah, the offerings are usually not open for long because there's limited space, because I think the small group is the
Mhm.
best avenue for cultivating that. Um, and I just feel always so honored in the ability to hold that space for these women, because I think that's one of the key pieces that's lacking in so many of the other either DIY programs or mass group programs for any sort of writing, whether it's fiction or even memoir, is these stories are so personal and so big and so tender that I think it's been in my experience when I've tried other avenues and when I was seeking guidance for myself in my own writing process, that there just was not enough um, care given to the way that these emotions come up, to the vulnerability that's required to really share your story and get any sort of feedback or guidance on it. It's terrifying, right?
Mhm.
And because I know this and because I saw a void of this, a lack in so many other of the programs that are out there, that's why I've created the Memoir Master Plan cohort. And I'm so lucky to get to work with these women and have them share their stories because I mean it helps me feel seen and validated. I mean, that's just the way like the four of us were sitting in this first week's meeting and found like a very pronounced common thread between all of our stories. Like it's so cool the way that that organically works out with each iteration of the groups, and it's different every time, even though we have some people who return group after group because that's one of the perks of the program. Pay once, come back as many times as you need to get your story written. But it's so cool how each group has its own kind of combined recipe and signature dish, right? Everyone's adding their own ingredients to the pot, and then it all brews together and creates this beautiful elixir that we all get to enjoy and pull from for our creativity. So, yeah, it's been a real honor to be able to hold that space for everyone.
Well, and I think that that's one of the beautiful aspects of being part of a writing community. And that's part of our idea behind creating this retreat-like experience is that yes, we have busy lives and we have a lot going on, but when you can create some time and space for yourself, even if it's at your kitchen table or on the couch in the evenings or wherever it might be, um, this embodied writing experience is for you and for you to, as Elizabeth mentioned earlier, take from it what you need and set aside other pieces. And it's it's again our way of building that connected community of creativity. And so, listener, we invite you to join us on our list and be a part of this community that we're building around memoir, sharing your story, whatever way you're showing up to write, we're here to hold space for you. The links are in the description and the details. And we look forward to having you be a part of our community and hopefully get on our list for a next round of the Memoir Master Plan cohort because it's a beautiful space for you to share your story.
That's also how we send out the links for the quarterly virtual writers retreat. And when you initially sign up, we'll automatically add you to all of these categories, but you can always click the preferences tab at the bottom of your email to opt in or out of whatever thing is not for you or that you want to be involved in. So it's definitely up to your preference and how involved you want to be. But um, and we're also very open to your feedback, to hearing what your needs are and what you're seeking. And we're ultimately just trying to do this for you guys because this is something that's helped us, and we believe that it's something that can help you as well.